Zero ends. Zero ends. Welcome again to another podcast / stream. I am known as Zero Ends here. And tonight, we're going to take it there. A very much needed little insight or look into pimping ain't easy. You feel me? But before I go in, I'm going to give 1 or 2 minutes before I start the reading. So sit back. All right. I guess we are all set now. I think my sound should be good. But let's check. Let's double check. Okay, you can never be too safe nowadays. I hope everybody's doing well. I know I am. We're in a new month. All right, I'm just checking my other end, make sure I'm sound good. Let's see. Okay, looks like everything's good. The title for this section. Let me check. The title for this stream is titled The Endangered Black Family in the 21st Century. Chapter 4. This is section 1. Pimpin' ain't easy. Now, why is it that I said pimpin' ain't easy? Well, this is a 2-part section in regards pimps, or what I should say, what makes a man a pimp. That's the first section of part of chapter 4. And it's going to be a very interesting look into what was said through back in the 80s when Nathan Julius Hare, when they compiled this book of their research or their understanding of pimping, maybe the history of it or some other things. But like I said, I wouldn't know until I go into it for myself. So for no further ado, let's get into the matter at hand. What makes a man a pimp? With a question mark. Street pimps are secrecy and necessity, talking freely only to those they know or trust, resting by day and distressing by night. In the more shady regions of the ghettos. Thus, to some people, they represent cruel psychopaths and degenerate to others, and the apex of glamour and sexual maleness or male illness. Although pimps make a conscious effort to convey a cold, hard attitude towards the world and its inhibitions, especially their women, they often are very human individuals, equipped with all the usual feelings and emotions. They live and abide by their own customs and codes of behaviors, maintain their own strict hierarchies of prestige and status, and employ a vicious mind game to give warmth and support, as well as something brutal treatments to their women. You know, when your backhand's so strong, you like to bow. That's what they mean by that. Pimps regard their profession as one of the most severe, nerve-wracking, and complex in the entire world, and takes considerable pride in assuming responsibility for the upkeeps, the care, and feeding on their families of origins and in-laws as well, although they are and they see themselves as somehow outside and even in rebellion against the general society. They long for public recognition and acceptance. The secret dream of every pimp in one day to be a square, say Spelman Young, ex-pimp and now articulating drug abuser, counselor in Chicago. The mutual scorns and distrust between the public and the pimp whore critique divides them further and draws the pimp and whores closer together in a subculture of psychosocial support. The pimp who feels he must dominate the prostitute explains or exploits this separation from the square world by imploding some fundamental tactics of brainwashing to enforce a physical and social isolation of the whore from her family and former friends. In this way, he controls all social contracts or contacts and relations, a stimulation, situation often reinforced by the tendencies of relatives and old acquaintance to astrict the whore or astrutinize the whore. Cutting her off from her family, the pimp makes her totally dependent on him and then totally destroy her ability to think for herself, say Spelman. Let's stop right there for a second. Is that the same relationship with ADOS, American people, in regards to how they were able to be simply controlled by other groups of people? Is that saying the pimp to whore relationship non-blacks and blacks have with each other? I want people to really think about that and really ponder on that. That your relationship with other race of people in America is no different from a pimp and whore for men and women. That one of a few things they isolate you from your family. What do I mean? They strip you from your homeland. Actually, they strip you from not only your homeland, but from your family altogether. And they sit there reinforce their program to you so that way you have no other choice but to bend to their will. Subliminally. That's deep. That's real deep. But it's something to keep in mind. And remember, the pimp makes him totally dependent on him and totally destroy her ability to think of her, for herself. Because remember, as long as you're dependent, you're not going to be able to think and act for yourself. That's the same relationship that non-black people and black people have toward each other. So let's go on. In efforts to rule by the mind game, the pimp employs a rather advanced technique of fractionizing abuse, the kiss and kick principle, in preference to a steady or unrelating flow of harsh treatment. Criminologist Professor Wallace Stefford of Lancey College in Oakland, California, tells of a pimp who last year gave his stable a big Thanksgiving feast and the entire day off. Sweet Erie Smith, who as a pimp supports his mother and a dozen younger siblings, were called pimps who would babysit and serve as fathers to their whore children by forming mates, and a stepson to their mothers-in-law. On the other hand, Iceberg Slim, who pimped in Cleveland, Detroit, and the Chicago area, will never forget the often tragic consequence of playing the game. One of his whores, now to the stable and the most attractive of all, complained one night of not feeling very well. Not wishing to offend the rest of the stable by appealing to give her special treatment, Iceberg turns her back and out into the streets with a warning to keep humping bitches, or keep humping bitch. Finally, one of the other whores persuade Iceberg that her complaining colleague was really ill. It was too late. She died of a ruptured appendix. What makes a man a pimp? To exploit and abuse a woman for simple monetary gratification, to drive her into the streets, to walk and wait in the cold, hard night, or the heart of a narcotical summer, to sell her body to strange and sometimes repulsive men while looking to him. The pimp asks her only man to contact disease and sometimes to die. While almost all pimps have known and reflect the consequence of early poverty, racism, and social rejection, they tend to list such factors as only 3 of the forces that push them into pimping. Street poisoning, as some call it, in a predatory environment, and the culture of the streets. They encounter older pimps as role models and mentors. See that? Let's read that again. Predatory enforcement and the culture of the streets. They encounter older pimps as role models and mentors. And this is what happens when you have no families or you're stripped from your families. This is what the environment produces. This is what it creates. You look up to people that abuse you physically, not much verbally, but the physical part is just detrimental enough. Sweet Jones stands out in Iceberg memory. Who takes them under their wings as errand boys in their 12 or 13-year-old innocence, impressing them with compelling rainbow-colored stables of womanhood, big cars, ready cash, fine clothing, and the smell of sweet cologne, inspiring them with personal praise and predictions of their own future success. That young dude going to make him a lot of money. Look at him. And the whores all laugh and echo the pimps. However, the ease with which pimps and whores recruit young boys often is aided by the nature of the boy's relationship with the attitude towards his parents and parental figures. Most recent or most attested to feeling of rejection by their mothers and tend to transfer their rage and hatred to others, women in later life. I think I know a few women. I've seen stellar followers who have never known love and affection, said Iceberg Slim. He and Spellman Young, by contrast, felt spoiled by their mothers, and yet Iceberg reminiscence today. I live in a pit of hate. My whole career as a pimp was a compulsory role play, dictating to one thing, my mother. Though my mother had a heart of gold, I felt she was too possessive, but I know she loved me. She never missed a night until I was 16, coming into my bedroom and sitting down and saying something sweet and beautiful she worried about me and was always holding me close and kissing me. As an only child, I too was possessive and screened her affairs like a husband. One night she went out to a tavern. I followed her and found her and went in and told her I want her to come out of there. Years early, Iceberg's mother, who only late in life was able to find a mutual satisfying mate, had left Iceberg reverse stepfather, father to him for a prettier, slicker man, and Iceberg never quit forgiving her until too late. She died while he was still in poison, or while she was in prison. Sorry. This troubled pattern in mother-son relationship is corroborated by the observation of such black female scholar as Dr. Ruth King, national president of the Association of Black Psychiatrists, and Ellis Cross, chairperson of the National Training Laboratory Institution near Washington, D.C., and herself a mother who feared that pimping may grow too popular. Sweet Ernie Smith grew up in the Los Angeles home of devoted mothers, a high school graduate, and a hard-working father who had only completed the 3rd grade, but who worked overtime to keep his wife in the role of housewife and mother. Sweet Erie came into a conflict with his father when he took the side of school authorities who had tested Ernie and declared him in the subnormal range, particularly in verbal faculties. Erie is now a PH.D. in linguistics. Erie's family had migrated from Oklahoma, which helped lead him to experience a conflict of culture. He began to feel that his own efforts to adjust as he bounced from dumb boy classes to school for the incorrigible were succeeding no better than those of his father. If the roof sprang a leak, his mother might tell his father that any real man would go to the landlord and make him fix the roof, or fix this roof. If his father went to the landlord, then got into an argument, the family would be forced to move, posting a setback in wages and other expenditures. If the father displays his rage and violence towards his wife, the police, that is, the man, would be called and his father would be jailed, losing wages and bail money too. Sweet Ernie decides that he don't want to be that kind of man, and in his negative identity with his father, I couldn't identify with him in his lunchbox life and his coping strategies by taking low. He soon fell into associations with a pimp called Schoolboy, a semi-immigrant from Tennessee who was always advising, get you some education. It's some old Southern, some South Ebonic stuff. I think they call it education. That's how they pronounce it. At 17, Sweet Erie was driving a Cadillac. Ooh, you know, the Cadillacs back then were sweet. if y'all notice. Looking back now from the halls of higher learning, Dr. Sweet Ernie Smith recalled how he also came to scorn other father figures, male school teachers, probation officers, and social workers as black men with peckerwood noses coming out of their heads. He watched their bourgeois approach to women with a curious contempt. "Hello, darling G. Your attire, that certainly is a lovely dress, and your hairstyle is simply gorgeous. You certainly provide or provocate later." Or they call it provocative later. Later, he would listen to some pimp approach a strange woman. "Hey, mama, you know who this is? I'm Pretty Ed.D. The best thing that happened to a woman since party hoses. Honey, you choose me. All you got to do is bathe in milk, fast through silk, and sleep under Satan's coils. Or bitch, congratulations. I'm going to make you a superstar." Mostly what you're telling the girl is how excited you're going to make her life. Sweet Erie explains, "Everybody wants to be a star." Iceberg Slim notes, "If a whore can say I'm pretty slim woman, she can bask in his reflection glory." And coming from a poor and often a broken home and without exceptional talents to market in legitimacy society, she can seldomly expect to make it to routine stardom. Her association with the pimp satisfy her what they call womanly longing to be attracted to a man of power and status or stature. The pimp conspicuous display dazzling in its splendor, attraction, and integrity. His late model gold-plated Cadillac has ready cash his reputation. Her fur, if she is lucky, and their diamond rings, there are items of value which, particularly in the low-income section of the ghettos, constitute flashy, portable signs of what they call influence, which are at the same time more easily acquired, hot or cold, than some more stable and actual more expensive item, such as a modest house or a small but comfortable business. Beyond such symbols of influence, according to San Francisco psychologist Thomas Hare, the pimp provides the whore with somebody strong to lean on, and in the smurl and smears of the universe, somebody to show her the way. Dr. Hare point out that some black women recoil against the stereotypes of the strong black woman, fear being through unfeminine, and the strong man makes them feel more like a woman, reinforcing their basic femininity. You always hear femininity a lot throughout the YouTube and other places. But I guess a pimp, from what is said, draws out femininity. But let's go on. The pimp accordingly reaps a paradox of scorn and shadowy prestige in the love life of a street. To scorn women, the pimp is the epitome of masculine appeal, or the enigma. Testifying Valerie Trout, the education director of Change, which is abbreviated CHANGE. A black mental health faculty in Berkeley. Thus, a preoccupation with personality as a weapon of love pervades the psychological modalities of the street pimping manifesting itself typically in the constant endeavors to affect a narcissist, self-loving, peacock endeavor and interaction with his women. Much of this behavioral style splits over into the mannerism of men who would be pimping but in fact are not, and along with the general motivation of the pimp constitute a rebellion against a thwart masculine, a redefine of manliness or manlessness and sex roles according to Sweet Erie. A man don't wear pink clothing, a black player can. A man don't wear linen and loud yellow, a black player can. A man don't get his fingers nail polished and toenails manicure, a black player can. A pimp takes on the most effeminate things and makes them masculine. You see that? So what you feel when you see a man dressed nice, fly with the bright colors, the nice hat, them high heel boots type, and has his nails done nice and colored pink, black, and has his feet done, he is by definition a homoerotic male, a very effeminate male, posing as a so-called actual masculine man. So you can't get any feminine than a pimp. Matter of fact, let's go even further. One of the first forms of the stage of feminization is a pimp. Y'all didn't know? Go back in history. Look back during the days of enslavement. A good movie that explains this is Goodbye, Uncle Tom, I believe. So, let's go on. However, most pimps are lousy lovers. Iceberg Slim concedes the contrary to popular belief that the basic attraction between pimp and whore is not a sexual one. I act like I was Apollo, but pimping is not a beauty contest, Iceberg said. The pimp has to be cold, stay in cold storage. I'll lay in bed with my surrogate lover. Many pimps keep teddy bears and the likes of in their bedrooms, pretending not to be wanted, some fine brown frame. But you sure got a one-track mind, women. Hurry up! In the end, however, a woman is said to place less value on sex but comparison and is able eventually to turn the tables on a man. At the same time, says Spelman Young, where Spelman says, the whore retains her ability to make money long after the pimp loses his. The tragedy of a pimp life is that he confused domination with genuine strength, focus on a push-button psychology, the mind games, and his relation with women and affection, a kind of backfire riddance, psychoclinical slavery, or physical slavery. The square wants to make a sexual conquest, Iceberg said, explaining. The pimp wants to make a total conquest. To do so, he must sometimes restore to cruelty and misuse, even mayhem and violent abuse, but all the time, says Iceberg. The whore is stacking her cards, and her constant secret dreams is someday to bankrupt the pimp. Iceberg will admit that in all his years as a pimp, he never fully managed to understand the game, or what they call it, gamation, or gamemanship of the female. If I had, I would have wound up in the purgatory or the penitentiary. While Iceberg was in the pen, the last time his bottom woman, main whore of 13 years, left for another man, to whom she gave Iceberg's car and other possessions, even his dog. Damn, they took the dog. That's some cruel shit. According to Spellman Young, the pimp has an annox that in the end, the games turn around, leaving too many pimps as defeat dope at or in the penitentiary, or wandering meaninglessly, now shabbling dress. And detouring up and down now dreary ghetto streets, and in and out of cheap bathrooms, boasting to sustain their pride and trying to call back in conversation of the young and capacities that have gone forever. But it's justice, said Iceberg Slim, who serves 4 terms in the penitentiary, but somehow got out of Pimpin in time. And this ends the quote, and I'll say this. Any man who can handle a dozen women has no business being a pimp in the first place. That's the end of the section of chapter 4, section 1. To recap and look over this, and there's more to the other section, deal more pimping and whoring, but it tells a nice story of the relationship between the pimp and the whore. That as a pimp, you had to get in these women's minds fast. And one of the best ways to control any women, you get them young and early, particularly at the age from around 12, 13. And that's mostly the right age when they're about to touch puberty, around 13 going on 14. Usually most menstrual cycles to women now, I think, is cut down, but usually average is over 14, not 12, 13. So they get them when they're right at the peak where they now could be able to bear children themselves. That's the time they really get these women, because now their mind is at a point where you can control them more, even better once they're reaching teenage age. A pimp's world is a world of control. So one thing I want people to understand, the relationship between blacks and non-blacks is that same dynamic. You have a pimp and you have a whore. In relation to black people, in general whole, you are the whores to the pimp, which is the non-blacks. Eurocentric man, or, is the pimp that keeps sitting there, said, go get my money, bring my money, do this, do that. I beat you or abuse you verbally. Same relationship. Nothing has really changed throughout the centuries. You think the common pimp now that's in our street that's bad, you have to put the pimp in the same place as how you put yourself as a collective through other racial groups. So that I want y'all to, think on that and to meditate on that note. So, like always, that wraps up this little section of this chapter. Thank y'all for listening. For those who's listening in, be on the lookout for chapter 4, section 2, the completion of this short chapter. Until then, I'll see you again soon. Take care and goodbye. Thank y'all for listening. For those who's listening in, be on the lookout for chapter 4, section 2, the completion of this short chapter.